Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar with Edia Learning. This morning, it's on enriching student experiences. We're so glad you're spending your morning with us. Edia has a lot to share with you and some actual Virginia examples for you. And so I'm going to turn it right over to Daniel from Edia to introduce everyone.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this webinar today. I also want to welcome Hillary Pleasance from Fluvanna County that's going to be going through some of their experiences. And so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here and just tell everyone a little bit about about Edia, and then we will dive into some of those things. So the agenda for today is we're going to do introductions of Edia, of myself, of Hillary. Hillary is going to take us through their journey with Edia for the high quality instructional materials adoption process for math. And then I'll take some questions and answers about Edia math. And then we also have a new solution that we're really excited about that's also AI supported that helps address chronic absenteeism for divisions in Virginia. And so the big idea that we're going through today is the little places that AI is making improvements in what we've always done. And so we'll be looking at curriculum with Hillary, and I can speak to also the AI components of that and how it supports our work in math and the gains that we've seen on SOL. And then we'll look at the little ways that we can integrate AI to automate in attendance and really grow some of our most important processes from there. For folks that aren't familiar with Edia, our mission is that we want every student to have an exceptional education in school because school shapes trajectories. What we do in seventh grade affects our career, it affects our home, it affects our families. What we do in kindergarten affects what we do in our free time when we're adults. And we're just really happy that we get to be a part of that and really in a growing way. In Virginia. And so we have a lot of division partners kind of scattered all around the state. We have some more who will be joining us for this next school year as well. We're waiting on the official signatures before we add their logos to this slide. But there's a lot of various different uses here. We have some partners like Richmond County and Savannah County. They're using us as the core curriculum in our partnership with Illustrative Mathematics. We have others where we're offering a math supplement. And recently, we've also added our first attendance partner, Danville City Schools, will be piloting our attendance program in Virginia as well. So we're excited to share that. So I want to turn this over to Hillary on the next slide, but just I want to speak with just to how great Hillary has been. I was really blessed in this school year and the school year before to work with dozens and dozens of Virginia divisions, probably some of yours on curriculum adoption. And so I got to learn a ton about that process and see it driven so many different ways. And Hillary and her teachers that were involved in our pilots, their team really just did an exceptional job of finding the best fit for their students. So I'm excited to put the spotlight on Hillary and her great work for you today. So Hillary, I'm going to stop my share and let you bring your presentation up if you'd like.
All right, Daniel, thank you so much and good morning, everyone. Let me just try again on this share here. It didn't go through the first time.
There we go.
That coming through now? Okay, great. Good morning. So I'm Hillary Pleasance. I am the Division Math Coordinator in Fluvanna County. And like Daniel had mentioned, I've had the pleasure of getting to know him over the past couple of years throughout this process. And I would definitely like to say that kind of the same thing as far as his work and the work of Edia. We worked with many vendors. We were exploring all options for our K-12 math adoption, and Edia definitely was a showcase of exactly what this process should look like. So I want to thank you, Daniel, for that. I'm going to take you guys through just a little bit of what the process looks like on the adoption end for person in my kind of position, and feel free to ask questions, and Daniel can jump in and ask questions or answer questions I know as well. So we really started when we got the state mandate for the high quality instructional materials adoption. And we know since that time that deadline has changed a little bit and we've had a little bit more flexibility, but we did start this process early when that happened. We developed a committee of 42 members, including teachers, community members, parents, administrators, and we basically narrowed it down to the top contenders that we felt were the most likely to represent what we had in mind for our students for a K-5 lens and a 6 through Algebra 2 lens initially. After each of our vendors presented, we had all of our committee members fill out a really comprehensive rubric where we talked through all the different benefits of each of the programs. The committees was open to all. It was sent out to parents, again, to teachers, to all staff members and administrators, and we had a very good representation on that committee. The contenders that we looked at for a K-5 lens were STEMscopes, Eureka, and Kiddom. And then 612, we looked at MathSpace, VASS, and Edia. And we did an additional open call for resources. And it was suggested by committee members that we also review Edia for 5th grade. And I'll mention a little bit more about that in a few minutes. All of our committee members and all of our staff members were given access and were able to explore all of the resources for each of these programs throughout the process. So we worked through all of these different companies, exploring all of the different pieces. And we really started with our vendor presentations in January and then moved into those rubrics that I mentioned and then spent some time digging into the data from what those rubrics told us. So the quotes here are just a couple of different quotes that came in from some of those surveys. So after our committee presentations, all of the teachers that were involved took those back to their professional learning communities. They took them back to math department meetings and to grade level teams to kind of keep that feedback going both ways throughout the process. And our survey rubric data that we got for our K-5 adoption initially showed that Kiddom was our leading K-5 preference, then followed by Eureka, and then by STEMscopes. And again, that was from all of the different rubrics that the committee members completed. And this is just another way of looking at that data for that K-5 adoption. And then with our secondary, our initial rubric data did not show Edia as our top contender when we first completed that survey alignment. And so I am going to talk a little bit about that and then how that changed for us. So we did have many things that we did like about Edia, but it wasn't our initial top choice as we were looking at the companies. So we did our initial rubric, but we had a teacher at the high school who teaches algebra who asked if she could piloted the contender that she thought was, we were thinking was our top contender along the way, and gave her students the opportunity to use that during the first semester. And she said she would really like to try to pilot Edia during the second semester. And when that happened, that is when we saw a huge shift in where we were going with what we thought was important. So students in the classroom were given surveys before and after the pilot, and also just, in their daily communications with their teacher and the way that they spoke about the different programs, they felt very strongly that Edia was the right platform for them. They actually said, please don't make us use the other one again. We want to use Edia. So we really took that that meant a lot to us as far as her classes consisted of, she had some honors students, but she also had a class of some students that really struggled with math concepts and really were not very confident in their abilities. And those were the students that had the strongest preference toward using Edia. And those are the students that we need to work to support the most. So again, we really took that into consideration, and we made a shift in what we were going with. And we decided that after those points that because of their ability for remediation, for acceleration, that Edia was our clear winner there.
And
So
I think that's one of my favorite stories that I got to be a part of all year is doing that pilot and seeing teacher and student feedback really come to the foreground to say what this is. I think that everyone had a process for going through it where it went through some sort of formal evaluation. And I was really happy to see a division say, let's get student and teacher feedback on what this was. And that particular teacher also was a really powerful advocate for EDA after seeing the difference of EDA math in the classroom. And so I think it's just great. And I think it makes me feel like one of those sports movie turnaround stories when it comes down to actual game time. Edia got to shine. So thank you for sharing that, Hillary.
absolutely. So we at this point kind of decided were we ready to vote. Committee members said yes, we were ready to vote. At that point, we did have the information from the state that we could hold for a year, and we went ahead and decided we did not want to hold. We wanted to go ahead and get this in front of our students sooner rather than later, so that we could start to realize the benefits. As far as an entire staff of our division, after our committee had made our decision, we went ahead and took it to all teachers. And as some of you guys might know, just there's always going to be people who are hesitant to make a change. And our survey of all of our staff kind of showed that we definitely have some people that want to move forward, some people that were not in favor of moving forward yet, but as far as the majority goes, the majority was ready to go and move forward and give this a try.
I think for all of us that have led change initiatives to give teachers the option of let's wait a year or let's go ahead and do it to get even close to a majority vote of let's move forward with something is really amazing.
Yeah, we were excited with that. And so I mentioned earlier that, our initial adoption had been a K-5 and then a 6 through Algebra 2. We ended up making a recommendation after that initial review to go with Edia as well for our fifth grade students. And there's a couple of reasons behind that. One is our configuration here in Flaviana. Our fifth grade is with our middle school. And so we wanted to be able to have our students have that same opportunity. But two is really about the flexibility of Edia to work with us to really customize that fifth grade content. We follow the CIP. I know that many districts do. And they've been working with us to be able to create that core curriculum to align with our CIP pacing. And they're especially doing that real overhaul with their fifth grade curriculum to make it work for us. And we were really pleased with their willingness to work with us. Both of our adoptions that we're going with here are also using the foundation of illustrative mathematics, which is really amazing that our students are going to have a vertical experience from kindergarten all the way through high school within that same platform. I did want to mention here that, EDIA did not have the highest of our standards of learning alignment, but looking at these, the numbers were so minuscule of a difference between the highest and these numbers that we were very comfortable moving forward without that being 100% alignment. We have, in Virginia, never had anything that's 100% aligned in the past. We are quite used to making our own tweaks as needed. And I know, Daniel, you might want to speak on this as well.
Yeah. So I think that these are the CIP evaluation numbers. Is that right, Hillary?
They
Yeah.
are.
So the first time that I saw these is while I'm sure a lot of divisions have talented folks that are comfortable working with that, is this seemed like something to me that our team needed to fix. So in our commitment to Fluvanna and to our partner divisions in Virginia, myself and members of our professional learning team, Sherry, that some of you may have worked with, if you're partner division, she's wonderful. Um, we went to CIP, met with Mr. Hurt there, and got access to that to see where we were weak and to improve. And so for fifth grade, for example, we were able to go in and really improve that and get it to where we have skills for every single SOL standard. And we've done that for all this work as well. Some of that was just because we are AI based and we generate questions. We needed to point out, hey, actually, we do have that. It is here. And in some places, we found real gaps and we were able to create content to align more to those standards. And that kind of spirit of improvement is something that I can speak for my whole team and say that we're really committed to. And I hope that what Hillary's speaking to is that kind of the proof in the pudding of that we've been really committed to making sure that those numbers actually are 100, and if they're not, to close that gap very, very quickly.
Absolutely. And yes, I've had feedback as far as, from Sherry and from your team, just saying if there's anything we find that's not fully aligned, just let us know and we're going to get it there. So, yeah, I would second everything that Daniel just said with that. So we, again, kind of I talked through, but our standards alignment is really strong. If not 100%, it's very strong. We loved the spirit of the conceptual understanding that's behind the curriculum as far as the core curriculum, the data that Edia produces that well, I won't say her name, but our algebra teacher was able to retrieve from using this with her students was really impactful as far as her ability to provide appropriate differentiation for her students in the classroom. So again, we are very excited to be moving forward with this. Just a couple of slides here that just demonstrate what Edia can look like in action for students. And Daniel, if you want to talk through any of this
Sure.
too.
So, in addition to the core curriculum, on our theme of AI enablement here is finding the places where AI can make a big difference without taking over the classroom to support what's always been good teaching and what's always been good education policy is really important. And I think one of the big things that we add is our AI math coach. And you're going to see other people have an AI math coach. It's where EDIA really differentiates is we have been providing this AI feedback longer than anyone else. We've been around for about 5 years with this AI math coach, and it does some really powerful things in the classroom. I think one of the most exciting things that I learned about the AI math coach is that when a student asks it a question, they do tend to have a conversation with the AI math coach. So this isn't just pointing out mistakes and giving them feedback, which is great, but it's also giving students the opportunity to have dialogue about math, whether they're in a busy classroom, they're at home working on their own, and the gaps that that's been able to close have been really amazing. We also want to make sure that this is available to every student. So we support over 105 languages for both the problems, the feedback, the read aloud. And we've continued to add equity features, such as now students can speak to the AI math coach and it can speak back to them to make sure that that's accessible for all students as well. So, um, and
Yeah, this is really this was really the feature that the students, when I mentioned earlier that this is kind of the preference for the students was that the feedback that they received as they were working through the problems, it doesn't give them the answer, but it does definitely give them feedback in a way that they could understand and they could relate to. So it wasn't just here's your example problem, figure it out from there. It's really giving them some step-by-step coaching as they go through, and they really valued that. And as a teacher with 25 students in a classroom, you know that you want your students to be practicing their work correctly, right? And so the teacher can only be with so many students at a time overseeing that. We don't want our math students practicing something incorrectly over and over again. And so this really is an opportunity for them to get that immediate feedback as they're working through problems. The data, I mentioned that earlier. This was another feature, again, that our teacher found really helpful was the ability to see where all of the students were right away within an assignment, and then quickly with just, kind of a swipe of a mouse, being able to highlight some students and assign them different opportunities that they needed to work through.
And that's another place we found power is just the data is real time. And if a teacher gives a start at the beginning of class, they can look at that data during class and know how to create small groups or know what students need extra support immediately.
So we kind of going back to wrap up our process. We had open access for everybody. We had a lot of great debate throughout the process, and we ended up with, a democratic consensus. Not, we saw it wasn't every person ready to move forward, but the majority was. So we went ahead and we did recommend, and our board did approve that we would be adopting, and we have already gotten access to Edia. We've had teachers coming in working on it across all grade levels for summer curriculum work and exploring, and we are really excited about our PD in the fall to kick that all off. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing.
But Hillary, thank you so much. We're really excited to at Fluvanna to our partners and see the great things this is going to do for students and making teachers' lives easier. So I appreciate you sharing that process and sharing it openly with us too. Is I really didn't want this to be a here's a marketing thing. I wanted it to be let's look at what this is like in real life and where we're going to improve for students. We're going to take a look at our attendance, our AI supported attendance system here in just a minute, but I did want to pause here and take any questions that are specific to math. All right. All right. Now, this is going to be an overview of Edia attendance. We have, again, as I mentioned, we've got several partners in, well, dozens of partners now with divisions in Virginia. But we are now launching our Edia attendance software. Danville is also using Edia Math, but we'll be using Edia attendance through some of their school improvement grants for a few of their campuses as well. But I'd like to give an overview of Edia attendance and how it can help divisions save time, reduce chronic absenteeism, and ultimately get more students in school and learning while just saving hours for your team. So the core problem that we saw when we started building this solution is that thousands of kids are missing school, especially post-COVID, and it's been a hard trend to reverse. And there have been a few divisions and districts in the country that have had success. There's some thought leaders on this, such as attendance work. And in our conversations with them, we learned that really a big issue is that about 75% of absences are going completely unexplained. When we think about what happens in our schools with a student being absent is if a school has 2,000 students and a 10% absence rate, that's 200 phone calls, 200 text messages, 200 pieces of communication that have to happen and be two ways, be a real conversation to understand what's going on with those students, much less to follow up on it. So what we've built is a tool that makes this as easy as possible to implement the best practices for attendance. And so it's to think of it at its core is to make every absence visible, to find the places that there's urgency, those students that are having an emergency that needs to be fixed, to help with compliance work, to help with managing follow-up, and to help with meaningful interventions, whether that's in an intervention context or in truancy response, to ultimately get those students back into school. And so the first part, how do we create visibility? To understand what's happening in our communities, we have to have conversations with our communities. But there are so many kids absent every day that it's really difficult to have all those conversations that we need to have. Now, going back to that example of 100 absences, not every one of those is going to be an emergency. Not every one of those is going to be something where students need support. A lot of them are going to be a student is sick or has a doctor's appointment or they're away for a sports game. So knowing the difference is very, very important. So the first step is teachers are not going to see any different software, but they are going to just take their role like they normally do in your student information system. Our AI attendance assistant is going to detect that. And within a few minutes, it's going to send a message out to families. Now, most divisions that I talk to have some sort of robocall or automatic email in place. What's really different about this is it's starting a conversation with families about why the student is absent. And the names are changed for FERPA compliance here, but you can see a real example of a text message. So Jaden was absent. It starts a conversation. The parent can respond, and they can even share the doctor's note and documentation directly in that text message as well, which parents have just absolutely loved, that they don't have to put a letter in their seventh grader's backpack and cross their fingers, that they have a way to make sure that that gets submitted. And so with that, we can get students back in school for most of their instructional day and raise that. But two things can happen. Depending on your student information system, is this absence, this example, the code is going to get automatically updated in alignment with your division's policy. But for some students, there's going to be urgent things where we need to support those families and support those students in a way that lets them feel connected to the division and to their school and to their supports in the school. So other ones are going to get flagged. From there, those flag ones, those edge cases, those things where something has happened for the student where they can't get to school or they don't feel comfortable coming to school or they're have a conflict at school that needs resolution. AI is going to surface those from the conversation and bring attention to them so that those students can get the appropriate support. And in talking to our partners, and right now, as I mentioned, Danville is our first launch in Virginia for this school year. But talking to our partners in our states that launched last year, this has been so impactful in the relationship between a family and a school when they share a problem and it gets responded to quickly. It can really change the tone of talking to these students about how do we get them back in school. A lot of times it's we have an attendance meeting at the fifth or the eighth absence, and families can feel a little bit like they're coming to court. But if you know what problems are there and we've been trying to solve them, that instead becomes a way more collaborative time and it makes it much more effective for getting students back into school. In addition to that, you need to see what's going on with student data, both as a division, as a bus route, as an individual school zone, and those patterns that are developing with individual students. So we are going to look at patterns for individual students and recommend them for intervention so that students never fall through the cracks and that you can take the resources you have and apply them to those students. But you're also going to be able to see patterns in your data based even geographically. And I've shared this with folks that I know I've met before that are on this call. So please excuse me sharing this story again. But one of my favorites is from one of our early districts. They had 5 elementary schools and they looked at the absence reasons for those elementary schools. And one elementary school, 40% of their absences were transportation related, which was a huge outlier for them. They were able to look at the heat map and see that almost all of those absences were concentrated in one apartment block that was less than a mile from the school. They were in walking distance of the school. So it's a little hard to believe that it's transportation related. But because they had those conversations with families already in place, they could look back and see what was happening. And they saw in those conversations that those students weren't coming to school when it was raining because they were too close to that school to get bus service. And when it was raining, they didn't think it was worth it. So it ended up being just a couple minute call with their transportation director to ask them to add a bus stop, and a really easy problem to fix. They added a bus stop and this was corrected. And not every attendance problem is going to be that easy to fix, but we can't really fix any of them if we don't have deep visibility into what's happening. And so letting you respond in that intervention context and giving you the tools to do that. And don't get me wrong, your team are still going to be making some phone calls for attendance. This is not going to completely replace that, but it's going to automate the easy stuff so that your teams can focus their attention where students really need it to be focused and where families really need it to be focused. And this is exciting too. I've had conversations with some of you before about Edia attendance, a couple of you, I believe, and we've added some new features that I'm excited to share. One, we can completely automate truancy letters for you now. No one will have to lick an envelope or mail a stamp or print the letter. We can automate that for you down to sending those. And we've also added new truancy prevention management as well, where you can look at truancy and chronic absenteeism cases. Uh, and I think this is probably one of our biggest time-saving features is if it's your policy to bring a student in for a meeting at the 5th or the 8th or the 10th absence, we now have a scheduling tool where your teams can put in their availability and it will automatically schedule those parents for that meeting and give them the tools that they need to reschedule and send out all of those notifications and follow-ups. And we can customize that to division policy from there. So that means that we can see what's happening with absences. We can respond to those students that need attention right now, day of. We can see patterns developing, and we can respond to those patterns either through an MTSS intervention, or if needed, we have all the tools we need to run a really high fidelity truancy process as well. And we've seen great results with this. These case studies are included here. There's actually a news article from one of our early adopters in Dunkirk City Schools, which is in New York, but you'll see both about the math coach that we've talked about today, which you've got somebody in state talking to you, but they will also speak in this shared part about our AI attendance assistant. And one of my favorite quotes, I don't know if it's in this news article or not, but if anyone, my contact information's here, I'll send it. But there was a parent and they described the text messaging as like, I can handle attendance and it's just like talking to my friend about where we're going to eat dinner. And removing those barriers for parents to communicate has been super, super valuable as well. It's another one from Springfield, which is again not in Virginia, but we're launching this in Virginia, and just some of their results is resolving an enormous amount of attendance coding with the AI attendance assistant and seeing those updated, which saves hours and hours and hours. Seeing a huge increase in their family engagements and a huge ability in their staff ability to focus. And this 2% might sound like a small number in a lot of contexts, but it is so meaningful. And we've seen this with most of our attendance partners, a 2% increase in how many students are there each day, which is ultimately a 2% increase in learning. It's a 2% increase in students that are getting access to resources. It's a big increase in students that are there for the free and reduced lunch supports they have. This is making a real difference in their lives. And something else that I'll share in some additional case studies is we have also seen partners see their secondary pass rates improve by as much as 7% just because more students are in school and there's deeper connections with those families as well. And so that is a little pitchy, but I do want to stop and ask if anyone has any questions or thoughts about Edia attendance at all. All right. I think that that's actually going to get us pretty close to wrapping up a little early, so a shorter recording. But I do want to share contact information for folks. Several of you all that I see in the participants, you have met me before, but we do have a Virginia team. Myself, Caroline Ehrlich, and Bobak are helping with the Virginia team here. And so you can contact any of our folks at Edia, but I did want to go ahead and share that contact information, and this will be in the presentation that we share as well. So you'll see me. I'm Daniel Way, the regional director. Bobak is a district coordinator, and then there's also another regional director for Virginia named Caroline, who is fantastic. And hers is just Caroline at edia.app. But we will be sending follow-up emails to everyone as well. I promise we'll bug you a little bit to make sure if this is something that is looks applicable to you or your division, or you're curious to see a more in-depth demo or talk about how this can be customized for your division or your schools. We'd love to have that conversation as well. But otherwise, from there, I appreciate you all taking a look at how we've used AI just to not replace teaching, not to tear down the whole ball field and build again, but to really supplement what's been best practice for attendance and what's been best practice for teaching, but just to make sure that more of those things happen and that they're easier to do. So I appreciate everyone's time from there. And it's just been a pleasure to share with you today. And thank you for the questions.